Welcome, everyone. This is Brandon Krieger from DailyCyber. I'm really excited about the episode 291. I have a great guest that's coming on. I'm really excited about everything that we've been working on over the last year when it comes to cybersecurity. Things have been changing. I think you guys have seen a lot happening around the AI, market, as well as different tools and technology that's constantly coming out. I mean, you can't just keep up. It's just too much to do. And that's why I like to have experts like ones I have on today talk about cybersecurity, what they're working on in the industry, what's their thoughts and opinions on AI and how they're using it from day to day. And I think you're seeing a lot of my conversations around that is really driving how other experts, like this subject matter expert, is really driving their business, and then how are they evolving to the new era of AI, quantum computers, all that technology that we're talking about. So my guest on today is Dr. Chris Pierson. Having served in various cybersecurity and privacy leadership roles over the past 25 years, Chris saw firsthand the emerging gap forming between enterprise security teams and the need to protect corporate executives, high profile and high net worth individuals and their families from financial fraud, cyber crimes, hacking, reputational damage, privacy exposure, and identity theft. Chris searched to find solutions to reduce risk to this beckoning threat, led to by his launch of Black Cloak, which is his company that we'll talk about later, and then bringing the market the first digital executive protection platform. So grab a coffee, grab a tea, and let's hack at it. Hey, Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Pretty good. How's your week been so far?
It's been good. Been in one place this week, which is a miracle.
It's interesting. Like some people like yourself, I hear about they're traveling around the world, going from place to place, keynote speaking, working with customers. So it's a busy time.
It is, but nothing replaces being on site, in person, actually, right, getting that relationship with folks, and so it's exciting.
Oh, I mean, you build that rapport and relationship, especially when you talk to them, especially the things that we have to talk about. The difference from hey, how's your business going, to, hey, you had an incident, let me talk you through it. How do you protect yourself? I mean, I've had one, and we'll talk about a little bit later, but I had one that's just recently this weekend that I had to talk to a family member about. So you're talking about high profile kind of things like that. So I really want to go into your area of expertise, because this is right in your realm and what you do. So Tell me a little bit about what is digital protection or digital executive protection.
Yeah, so when you think about it, me as a former CISO, every CISO has the four walls of the organization, right? You know what's in the inside. You've got the computers on lockdown, you get the anti-spam, you've got the networks, cloud, you have all the different controls that you need and many, many more, right, at your beck and call. But when you think about digital executive protection, what it really is making sure that you protect corporate executives. That's going to be the board members, the C-suite, the executive leadership team, and their family members, right, outside the four walls of the company. So in their personal lives, where a threat or an attack there can cause a financial loss, a reputational loss, can cause direct hacking and targeting back to the company itself. And we've seen a number of those, and a number are public over the years. But it can cause calamity that causes you, the CISO, the CIO, to go ahead and have to react to respond. And unfortunately, what we've seen over the past 2 years is that convergence between physical threats and cyber threats, or cyber threats and physical threats, they kind of go back and forth. And so what digital executive protection is the realization that those persons that are high profile individuals must be protected digitally, privacy, cybersecurity. And there's that convergence on the physical side, but they must be protected because of their roles, because of what they represent to the company, to the rest of the organization.
No, that's interesting, because when you do that, and this is my hypothesis, you have to look over their whole profile, like from their day-to-day activities to their digital footprint, to their social media, and then go draw that back to the business and all that holistic. Is that correct?
It is very much so. I mean, essentially, right, the work life of an executive and the personal life of an executive are just inextricably intertwined. They're the same. They're one and the same. Whether they're doing a volunteer event, whether they're walking the streets on Saturday or Sunday, whether they're there late night, they are the manifestation of the company. And so everything that they're doing, their digital breadcrumbs that are out there, the data broker information that might be out there about them, the different social media posts about them, and things that their family members do also. It all adds up to that really digital persona that they have.
Mhm.
And that's what cyber criminals and nation states are looking for. They're looking to take advantage. Why am I a cyber criminal or a nation state? Why am I going to hack up against a $50 million cybersecurity program or infrastructure program when I can go target $5 of cybersecurity at home, or target the kids or the husband, wife, spouse, significant other, right? I can go ahead and get a footprint there. They can lead me back into the company. I've hit the jackpot.
Right. Because if you look at any executive, they could have privilege access, right? That's one of the things too, right?
Number one, people to have exemptions, privilege access exemptions.
Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, they're all busy. So stuff is going on to personal accounts, personal Gmail accounts, and all the rest. It's just this happening.
Right. Yeah, and I think too is the access of digital information across multiple areas, like you're talking about email, contractual, things like that on their voicemail, on their phone, on their smart devices. Their footprint can be on different areas where some things, if you're on your home network and your kids are compromised and you just don't know it, that device is now on that network, right?
And it happens all the time. Prior to COVID, this was one where executives were always working at home, but it was one of those that was like, hey, you're working at home an hour or two and all the rest.
Right.
When you take a look at the key people, board members are always working at home, minus an official board meeting when they're in the office. The executives, they were doing some stuff before, but post-COVID, everyone got their new home office and they're there. And then there's that executive leadership team more and more is in the home environment. And so that really is where the home becomes the new battleground. It becomes the attack surface, a soft underbelly back into the corporation, or most certainly into the personal lives of those executives. And once again, the family members.
Right. Now you've seen this evolve. Like, what does that look like for executives right now? Like, is this something they're searching out for now because of now the new digital age?
So, in the early years, this was something that, a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, or a Chief Security Officer very much wanted and needed and wanted that in there. What we really saw, probably since about December of 2024 was this is becoming a corporate mandate. They know that the exposure is out there. This is a material risk. You take down any executive, one of the C-suite, someone on the About Us or leadership page for any Fortune 1000, 2000 company.
Right.
You're talking about legal being put in action, right? General counsel, outside counsel, PR, investor relations, the CISO, the CSO, everyone is a full court press. So targeting that executive in their personal life, causing real harm there is absolutely a material risk that must be covered off by the corporation. Board of directors are asking for it, demanding it, and C-suite leaders are asking for it and demanding it. Quite honestly, especially with the tragic murder of Brian Thompson in December 24, this has just moved into a whole new separate area. And we've seen a number of high-profile attacks against key personnel and high-profile individuals over the years where this just really ups the ante.
Oh, for sure. No doubt about it. Now, is there governance around this? Are you seeing insurance starting to now push that we need to now have that in place and giving them the controls? Like, you need to have this in place, this in place, this in place. If not, your insurance is going to be at risk, your policy.
So, insurance companies very much so protect the inside four walls of the company. And so all their controls are really, really focused on that. However, what we are seeing is that the insurance market is saying, but if you can actually get there through other means, right, through something that's easier, and it can have a real risk to the company, this is something that we should think about. And that really plays into both cybersecurity insurance as well as D&O insurance. And so we've got a lot of interest there in that area.
Yeah, I was wondering that because I know as the evolution of security, the controls, compromises, the threat attacks, that now you start to see the enforcement of compliance SOC 2 Type 2, ISO 27001, and they keep evolving. And then, of course, insurance, right? It keeps evolving on, you need to move the bar up a little bit more. You need to move the bar up a little bit more on your baseline and security.
Well, I mean, I think that's all correct. I mean, when you, once again, using the castle analogy, when if you have that front gate, you got the alligators in the pit, you got the flaming tar pits, you got the big heavy metal and iron and all the rest. Great, but you know what? If the king and queen leave the castle and go to the summer cottage, what do you have there?
Right.
And that's where everyone is asking, well, what about the controls there? What about the attack surface there? How
Right.
are you thinking about that? How are you thinking about managing it? Because it presents a true danger back into the corporation, and one that is not hypothetical, one
Right.
that we see exposures in each and every week.
So now, how have you seen it since you've started to now 2026? How have you seen this evolve?
I mean, look, so early on, right, we really saw this. I mean, we're the category creator. So we really started out with digital executive protection that was focused on some basics of privacy, some basics of cybersecurity, some basics of home assessments and all the rest, and some basics of executive assessment. Over there, over that pattern, it's really morphed into a full product offering, a platform that is a unified platform for what we call full category digital executive protection. This is some 14 key tenets that actually come together to form digital executive protection. This is not a one-off identity theft or one-off data broker removal. I mean, these things are all necessary, but totally insufficient to go ahead and protect corporate executives in their personal lives. And so what we've seen is that others have, I mean, some others have kind of come behind us. This is a full category, but what you have to do is have that unified platform. You have to have all these different items acting in concert together. And if you don't, right, if you don't have privacy and identity defense, if you don't have AI threat protection, if you don't have executive threat intelligence, and you don't have that personal security operations center all geared up to protect the executive. So there's no sweat off the CISO's back, no sweat off the CSO's back. You don't have to worry about adding more to your day-to-day. That's what Black Cloak is here for, to take off all of those areas of responsibility that you might be shouldering now, and to do it in a way that actually makes logical sense and is purpose-built just for this, or just for this type of individual and just for these organizations. And that's what's really changed and progressed throughout the past 8 years now.
And then in saying that, because I mean, I used to work both physical security and then going into cybersecurity. You kind of look at, schedules, you look at timing, you look at if do they have regular routines that can be, gleaned from a profile, like, hey, they're on Facebook, and every December they go on Christmas vacation and it's posted on a regular basis, and they go to the same resort, same place every single year. Like, you look at kind of the physical and the digital footprint, but also you look at, their bank account, their hobbies, the executive golfs constantly at one private golf course. So there's all this type of profile you can create, like open source intelligence on the individual. And kids are at dance, one plays soccer. You kind of have all these things that you can start to attack at. I guess my question to you is, since you kind of start there, what has evolved in 2025, 2026 that's made it now it's so much different?
Yeah, I mean, so a big yes to everything you mentioned. Like, when you really think about it, it all starts with that executive threat assessment. It all starts with the pattern of life that you're referring to in terms of what types of things are they doing, and also that digital exhaust, the digital breadcrumbs that they have that really lead to a lot of open source intelligence. And so in that area, what we've seen is all the usual things happening, both privacy, the cybersecurity, that home area, and things really going gangbusters since March of 2020 in terms of the home becoming the new battleground. But specifically, what we've seen in, really, quite honestly, February, I think it was 4th, 2024. This is when you had the announcement that there was a equivalency of $25 million transfer from the deep fake of the CFO in Asia, in the APEC region. And you have this team being duped into actually sending that money elsewhere. The rise of deepfake impersonation against executives has gone gangbusters. When we did early Ponemon Institute research back in 2023, this was something about 34% were seeing some signs, some symptoms somewhere. We're over 40% in 2025. And in the past few months, This is one of the number one things that Black Cloak is seeing, is getting questions on. How do you protect the executive who is on CNBC, who has tons of video out there about them, all in high quality, all in high definition, has to do public, shareholder investor calls, and so you have the greatest voice prints ever. How do you protect them? And then you look at the About Us leadership page, and what do you have on the media site? You have download the high res, medium res, and low res, images about them. So you have all of that plus the bio, and you have the perfect storm for a deep fake impersonation against that individual's executive leadership team, the folks in finance, the folks in HR, especially massive, massive targets there, legal a little bit. And then once again, to their family and friends. These executives are always busy. They're always on. They're never off duty. And so sometimes it allows for gaps in communication back into the family or the friends, the wealth advisors, lawyers, and that causes problems. So what we are seeing just real quickly is we're seeing those attacks rise in deepfake. We're seeing the attacks rise against the executives overall. And so what you have is quite honestly, a perfect storm. Adding in one thing though, you mentioned it at the top of the show, the word family.
Right.
The great thing here is that cyber criminals and nation states have latched onto the fact that maybe it's like the movie Inception, right? You have a hardened target, someone that's been taught how to add some self-defense in, and that executive that's in that work environment knows it. So cyber criminals and nation states, they're also spending a lot of time on deepfake attacks and impersonation back to the family members because they consider them to be a much easier target.
100%. Now, do you guys go through any type of psychology? And I'll use this as an example. And some people are seeing this, is that you're looking at, don't be pressured. Make sure you're answering in a calm state of emails and voice messages and things along that line versus I'm running to a meeting. I have to answer this email quick. And as you and I know, a lot of times, and I am in dealing with incidents, you hear it's not the intelligence that they did. I never knew this. It's I knew, but I did this. I clicked on it when I shouldn't have, and I know better. Right.
So we call it hardening the human, right? Actually literally trying to harden their brain to try to stop it from moving from left brain to right brain. So slowing down that fight or flight mechanism that is inherently built into each one of us. Everyone, you have it, I have it.
Oh, yeah.
How do you slow down time? How do you go ahead and train people? And the way that you do it is fairly simplistic. First, you have to be able to create an awareness. Allow people to see and spot patterns, right? See and spot patterns of scams, of frauds, of schemes, all rest. And you can do that, just through easy training, but training in which people don't actually feel like they're being trained. So that's first and foremost, the socialization, issue spotting, all the rest. Second, you have to teach people to slow down time. So spotting the issues, yes, but then no matter what, always slow down time. There's absolutely nothing that needs to be reacted to or responded to quickly unless you're somebody in emergency services, a firefighter, a police officer, an EMT, right? All the rest of this, where you're literally responding to a life and death that is in front of you that you can see. Slow down time. And then third, you have to give people an immediate out, an immediate ability to talk to somebody about what you are specifically seeing. It could be a text message. It could be a vishing, a phone call, voicemail. It could be something on your screen, pop, it could be anything. But what you have to do is give them a lifeline that will not judge them, a lifeline that will not, and not part of the corporate reporting structure, so that everyone feels comfortable using it. So you want to be able to spot the issue. You want to be able to go ahead and slow down time, and you want to have the ability for, that reach out, that concierge, that helper. And if you do all that, you will automatically reset from the fight or flight slowly over time, right? You reset back in, and the rational thinking brain that you have will actually be able to make the right decisions or no decision at all, which in some cases is the right decision. But I mean, it's something that, cybersecurity folks are well trained to do, just the way an emergency responder is trained in terms of triage, and they know what the calamity is that they're going to see. We have to come at it from a different angle. Technology will only get you some of the way there.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is actually literally a relationship.
For sure. I totally agree with that. And I think one of the points I want to emphasize if people are watching this is that the slowdown, because something that I've seen as people go through, a lot of times these threat actors are trying to get you in an emotional state to take an action.
Yep.
Oh my God, little Jimmy, he's gone to the hospital. You got to call me back and click on this link and do that. Or, hey, this payment didn't go through with this invoice. You're going to lose your customer. Did it like something to create, a short time frame and in an emergency situation that now you're going to react in an emotional state versus a logical state. Like I've seen and I've heard conversations around people saying, the person who called me was my daughter. It was my daughter's phone. It was her voice. I heard she was in the hospital, but I just got off the phone with her, and she was like at home. Like it sounded exactly like her.
It is. So, I mean, the virtual kidnapping, the virtual accident, all the rest of these are great schemes and scams and tricks by which people have moved from. It used to be that it was like just an anonymous male or female voice that was around the same age, same octave type of thing. But I mean, now with voice cloning, it's even easier. But once again, we got to stop it. And there was a great book. It was either called The Chimp Paradox or Chimpanzee Paradox. And it teaches about the left brain to right brain and how to kind of slow down that fight or flight. It's about the first 20 or 30 pages in there are just so poignant. And it really applies to, cyber defenders like you and I that are out there. And if we can use that and just understand that this is innately baked into each and every individual, everyone, it's just part of who we are as humans. If we can slow that down, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I think some things I've done with customers I worked with is ask them a mathematical equation. Like if they're so ramped up, what's 75 times 144? And then see them kind of step back. What are you talking about? What's 75 times 144? And it kind of gets them reset to kind of go, okay, hold on. And they start thinking, okay, now what do you think of that email? And you can go back to them and they're like, oh, hold on. I don't have an invoice out for them. I don't have that out there.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me check with the CFO. Let me do my due diligence versus as they're in a panic. Oh my God, I'm going to lose this customer. It's a big deal to do, like whatever that may be. And you're like, hold on. And sometimes they're stuck and it's okay. Like it happens, right? Some people are stuck emotionally. Yeah. It's a big thing. And if you get them out of that state and then all of a sudden they start to think, all of a sudden they go, oh, hold on, timeout.
Yep. And this is once again where that trusted relationship comes in. We've seen a number of times in terms of romance scams for those folks that we have that are ultra net worth individuals, maybe a little later in life, single, trying to figure out things. And look, there's some people that you're unable to convince, right, that this is not real. The person didn't just get turned back from the border and needs $20,000 to come back in after you've already given them $100,000, $200,000, $500,000.
Right.
But once again, right, this is something that triggers all the emotions within human beings, right? Mm-hmm. It triggers you to go into that fight or flight mode. And sometimes that rational side is unable to overpower things. And that's why, once again, you got to have the right technology, the right education and training, and the right people behind it that know how to deal with those types of individuals.
For sure. Now, talking about dealing with these individuals, I know one of your background experience is like, what is it like working with public figures?
Yeah. I mean, look, for our team, for our company, this is where we live. We protect some 25% of the Fortune 100, some 22% of the Fortune 500, as well as ultra high net worth individuals, sports star, rock star, politicians, folks that are celebrities, folks that are high profile individuals, highly in demand, highly targeted. Mm-hmm. And the lives that they have in terms of the digital lives, the digital personas, I mean, sometimes there are multiple forces here. They have to be seen, they have to be heard, they have to be involved, they have to be out there. And so we have to have and really go to our heart of who we are, which is we're a product company that goes ahead and has a mission, which is we protect digital lives, period. Straight and simple. We protect digital lives. And we are concierge, but we're bespoke. We're bespoke because we have the capability and technology to be bespoke and to really get into a relationship with each and every client, every member that we have. And that's really special. We want to have the relationship with the CISO, with the CSO. We want to have a relationship with our endpoint executives, their family members, all the rest. Many of the same tactics are being used against your everyday individual that we see, but they're amplified up because you only need, these are the whales.
Mhm.
You only need to get one and you can get $10 million. You don't have to go target, 10,000, 100,000 individuals to get $10 million. And so the amount of time and dedication that we see attackers
Mhm.
focusing on, dedicating to, the OSINT that is done here on the entire family is unbelievable.
Right.
This is really, really becoming dedicated attack patterns that we've never seen before. And so for us and our team, it's exhilarating. It's absolutely exhilarating because we're able to succeed on that mission of we protect digital lives. We're able to swing in to help them. And everything we have, quite honestly, is just built for that persona. We're only built for board members, C-suite, executive leadership team members, some 10 to 600 individuals at companies. We range in all sizes per company. It depends, right? We have some transnational global syndicate. We're able to protect them. And the team just loves that, finds it challenging. We really do find it challenging.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's all about the mission and what we get from it and what we're able to make sure our members get from it.
Now, do you have to have cross relationships for example, insurance, legal, law enforcement, to be able to give a kind of a holistic portfolio and understanding of where that individual needs to be protected?
So I'd say yes and no. So, I mean, in terms of our relationships overall, Black Cloak owns its own threat intelligence platform. We built it, we own it, we operate it. And so we're able to get exactly what we need from that data that we have to be able to provide our clients with their executive threat assessments and really their privacy exposure reports, which all happen in that first onboarding. The privacy exposure session is an eye-opening experience for all of our clients. So we have what we need there. However, I think your question does ask, kind of like, do we partner with those folks that are also different spokes of that centralized hub of that family unit? The answer is yes. We work with their lawyers, their private wealth advisors, their personal insurance folks. We do work with those folks all the time. We don't do consulting, and so we're not really referring things over for prosecution in that area. But these folks have busy lives. We'll work with their proxies. We'll work with the chief of staffs. Many of them have chief of staffs in their personal lives as well, and executive assistants that are in their personal lives, and some have some that straddle. And so what we're about is bringing together all those people that are important to them, all those people that could also similarly be exposed, and really wrapping them in a cloak of privacy and security protection.
Yeah, the reason why I asked, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud, is like, say there is an incident, say one of the executives has an incident, there's an active threat, whatever that may be, you guys are getting information like that. Because you guys have that close connection, the forensics information, taking that and packaging up to a law enforcement saying, this person is in the same state, for example, we're going to notify you that they're an active threat on the executive that we're monitoring, we're taking care of.
Yes. I mean, modified a little bit. We'll work with with the permission of the executive. We work with the CSO and the CISO. They'll usually bring in the right people that they want, because it really does become a 24/7, 365 threat to them of what do we need to do in the company, what extra security, what new drivers, what new forms of travel and transportation. We had this in the past, what was it, a year and a half. We've had the Olympics, both summer and winter, I guess 2 years of the summer and winter. We just had extreme violence in Mexico City or in Mexico, I guess, overall. We have the World Cup that will be there. So we're doing, travel advisory work there to companies as well as to executives. So that's really the pieces and parts have to come together. Once again, it's got to be a unified approach to everything we do. And so that unified platform has got to include other people in that sphere to be able to solve things. It's interesting, though. You also mentioned, kind of like looking at different threats and all the rest. We do beat law enforcement a lot in terms of some of the threats that we're able to see, because before they get burned on, the everybody, sometimes these are thrust at executives for defense industrial base companies or executives for financial institutions. And so we will see a lot of times those different threats coming way ahead of time, 90 days ahead of time. Our team saw a change in doxing and swatting of key executives and more so board members ahead of important trades that were done publicly. And we were able to see that a good 6 months ahead of any public releases on it and work with other partners on it. So that threat intelligence really does come into handy.
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering, because you would see trends, and
Oh, yes.
not only you guys would see it, but you guys have the experience to identify suspicious or malicious activity to say, there's a concern here. We need to investigate that. Where
Yeah.
maybe the layman person might not go. It's like, yeah, I see this activity over here. That should be fine. But
Yep.
because of you guys' experience, you're like, hold on, that doesn't look right. That's suspicious. It's coming up that we need to just monitor
Yeah.
more.
That is a phenomenal question, and it's so true. So we will see things in terms of similar executives at the same company being targeted. Once again, I'm just going to say the Olympics was a really interesting one because we had a lot of folks that were sponsoring the Olympics that were there in person, and their teams and their boards and all the rest. But we also will see some that are sector specific.
Right.
So we'll see and have seen a lot happening actually in the energy sector,
Okay.
which would obviously, with all that's going on in the world you can understand why. We're seeing a
Mhm.
lot that's actually happening in the geospatial intelligence area right now. So there's a lot that is happening there. But we will see things that are similar across our clients in these different areas because we just have so many of those major logos. And so we will see different attack patterns happening there, but we also see them when a company is targeted. I'll give you an example. We had one company that raised its drug prices on something that is, well, usually popular, let's just say,
Yeah.
and I'm going to change the numbers. I'm going to say 400%.
Right.
Well, what we saw was the immediate threat intel is going against the board and the C-suite. We saw an extreme amount of doxing. We see swatting, and we saw, right, persons being actually physically protesting their homes,
Right.
all as a part of a coordinated campaign.
Right.
These are the threat intelligence signals that our team looks at, that we get, that we want to partner with folks on. And it really is, quite honestly, telling what happens in those cases.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that my hypothesis would be, because you have so many customers, the threat intelligence can now transfer over from customer 1 to customer 50 to customer 100, because
Yeah.
you see that, and you might see it in customer 1 first and trickle down to the rest. And you now have, hey, by the way, we're going to educate our customers that this is a new attack vector or
Oh.
threat that's coming out. We see it over here. And you talked about deepfakes. Say deepfakes are just even getting better. Now you can educate the rest of your customers saying, hey, let me just tell you, this is some education, some knowledge that we want to share.
And once again, spot on. We do exactly that, and we see that. The interesting thing is that we'll see that and do that for everyone.
Yeah.
But what we also see is sometimes, right, different patterns to a specific individual. I'll give you an example. The CFO for Walmart might act the same as the CFO for Target, as the CFO for Home Depot, as the CFO for Lowe's.
Right.
And right, you say, well, naturally, they're all kind of large retail stores, establishments with massive footprints, et cetera. Well, they're all very much the same, and their internal groups and operations are very much organized the same way, and the controls are very much the same. They have the same pedigree, and so we'll see threats and attacks against those types of persons, and then we can spread that just to folks that are the CFOs or maybe the head of executive benefits, or we'll see attacks that might be more targeted to CIOs, CTOs, it says CISOs and CSOs, et cetera, because the attacks targeted to them. So some really interesting things there that we can do. We actually, Black Cloak has a research arm. So we will put out our own research on different things that we see internally, as well as every once in a while, we'll put something out there into the sphere for the good of everyone. But it really is interesting to see what patterns emerge and when they emerge. And a lot of it is triggered off of public events and things that are happening.
Now, one of the questions I have for you, and I was reading over your bio, you have experience on the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. How did that influence the way you thought about digital executive protection, working these executives?
Yeah. So when you think about it's all different avenues, all different lenses, right? I've been a general counsel, so seeing the board and material risks and all the rest. I've been a chief privacy officer, so privacy is literally baked into our DNA from day one, or pounded in maybe at first.
Right.
Seeing the cybersecurity side in terms of as a 2-time CISO, and 1-time CSO, but the same on the classified side. What it does is it really does ground me in terms of different experiences, different views. I've seen defense industrial based companies not be targeted directly, but be targeted indirectly. We've seen what some of these different attack patterns are against agencies, agency heads, and leadership. And we've seen what is different versus in a federal government attack than a public company attack, than a pure private sector company attack, and all the things in between. And so what it really does is it's a massive benefit, number one, right? Obviously for myself and the company and all the rest. Second, it's a massive benefit in terms of how we think, because we are not we're not one dimensional, right?
Right.
We have multiple viewpoints of things. And then really at the end of the day, our members, our clients, and our champions really do benefit because we're able to have the conversations with them that are poignant and unique to them, so that it can be really specified advice and guidance based off their background. In a lot of cases, CSOs, the chief security officer, might have had experience in the Bureau or the Secret Service or in government and other agencies. And we're able to go ahead and relate about that and talk about different programs together and things that we do that might look or feel or seem similar.
Mhm.
In the same vein as somebody that came from, right, a banking area or a pure CISO, a private sector area, we're able to have those conversations. I think it just makes us a lot more worldly in what we see, a lot more worldly in how we think. And as a result, our clients really benefit.
Now, in that being said, my perception would be the Homeland Security, you would see more nation states, more advanced attacks than you would see on the general public sector companies, organizations, because better knowledge, more tools,
Yeah.
government sanctioned kind of attacks. Is that kind of in line with what?
It is generally accurate. The one exception is that there are a number of countries that really do encourage privateers, right? So during the day, they're working for the intelligence service. At night, look, let's face it, they're actually working for themselves as part of a cyber criminal operation.
Mhm.
And sometimes they give a take back into the government, and we see this in varying degrees. And so what you'll see is some of the same tactics being used in their professional life, the intelligence side, as are being used in their personal cyber criminal life. But I mean, we do see some crossover there. And once again, it just allows us to see that full scope picture of what is possible, what is highly likely. Yeah, I'll give you an example. An agency here, the U.S. government. Well, the fact of the matter is that because of FOIA, because of public exposure and public reporting laws, essentially where, I'm just going to call it the director, where the deputy director, where the assistant director, where they are going to be, what their itineraries are going to be. And you'll see it months and months and months ahead of time. That is very different than a pure private sector company. And then a public company is somewhere in between. You know where they're going to be for their quarterly board meetings, perhaps, or you can guess where they've been based off of past patterns. But it does set up some differences in and amongst those groups of people, which is why we have a full featured federal practice that really, really kind of coordinates a lot of those activities, because there are some differences.
Yeah, and I think that is, and that's why like working with someone like yourself would give them a broad spectrum of what level of protection they get and the intelligence of what's kind of the attack methodologies people are doing globally, right? Because then a lot of these companies you're not dealing with John's, grooming business out in Texas or whatever that may be, and it's small. You're dealing with massive organizations, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, where they have potential global presence. So you never know where these, threat actors are coming from.
Yeah, I mean, we see it all over. One of the interesting things is that, look, I mean, anyone with a board and kind of a C-suite is a great client of Black Cloaks, because you are targeted. And what we find is Acme Widget Company out of Pittsburgh. Well, Acme Widget Company is a family-owned enterprise making great widgets since 1850. Right. That name has been built up. The brand has been built up. They have Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, lots of money. They have a whole family office. They actually invest in the community. And look, at the end of the day, you're talking about OT risks on the inside of the company. You're talking about huge attack surface. You're talking about machinery that gets shipped over from Germany each year, and is, $500 million of machinery to make the widgets. Who knows? They're a massive attack vector, right, for organized crime, for cyber criminals. But, when you take a look at, well, do you want to go ahead and rob a bank, or do you want to go ahead and target the family office? Family office might have $500 million of AUM. You get a wire transfer out of there for $3 to $10 million. I mean, these are good takes. And so it really right? People kind of move between all those, and maybe, Jennifer, who's the CEO and the matriarch of the Acme Widget Company, also serves on 2 other boards. And if you get her in her personal life or her in her family office life, you might get their board books. And so now you have 1 private company board book and 2 public company board books. And so it all moves in circles, and it's very, very interesting for cyber criminals. Very interesting.
And something that, when people are watching this, to understand the exchange rate on some of those ransomware and they're maybe even catching like an ACH transfer or something like that. It's not $3 million. It could be 2x or 3x because of the exchange rate. I remember working in instant response, and I had to negotiate with a customer and say, look, that's, if you're staying at that level, what you're paying them. And then, they could be overseas, they could be in the Middle East, they could be, and the exchange rate is not X, it's actually X times.
It is. I mean, when you take a look at it, I mean, it's just a fact of the matter is that there are developed countries that are, top 10 GMP around the world, whatever the take is in whatever the denomination from those countries, where it's actually going to is a 10x, a 20x, a 100x, and the money just goes so much further. And a lot of that is used, unfortunately, back into violence, guns, knives, tanks, bombs, a whole bunch of violence and rhetoric that really doesn't play any role here, shouldn't play any role here on our planet.
For sure. Totally agree with it. Now, one of the questions I was interested in, how is AI influencing how you're doing your business on 2 sides? 1, how you're developing your business, and 2, the concern you have with your customers.
Yeah. So let's handle the customer concern really at the top. So what's interesting here is what artificial intelligence has done for the attacker is, instead of having to do a whole bunch of manual research, a whole bunch of manual looking, you already have data broker information, which is out there in public and available. You have one of the largest breaches ever is from a company called NPD, National Public Data. It's a data broker back in August of 2024. And that released unique information on approximately 270 million Americans. So you have a data broker that lost the whole database. It's on the dark web. You can never take it down. And then you have the deep web, dark web data. You take all of these, you stir it together, and you point artificial intelligence after it to say, hey, here's the Forbes 1000 list that I have. Go find all these people, get me all the good stuff on them, create an attack pattern for me, create a voicemail of this or that, whatever, find videos on it. It just greatly shrinks the amount of time to prepare an attack. It really allows you to be finite and be very, very precise, like pinpoint precision in terms of who you want to target, and create a ruse around them and their +1, +2, +3 family members. And so that's really what it's done there. It's really sped up that entire process, so much so that it becomes a huge attack surface that has to be mitigated, huge. On the how does it help us, the defenders? How does it help us? I mean, in similar vein, it allows us to complete that OSINT, that discovery, really bake it into our threat intelligence platform so we can find out as much as possible and mitigate it. It's like, yes, an X-ray is great, but you know what? Having an X-ray, CAT scan, an MRI, and all the other things going up, down, left, right, being able to do that and have a unified platform, a unified view of things, I mean, that's just going to take the cake. That is going to be what advances us to be able to better defend folks. And also, baking it into some of the controls, baking into some of the controls so that, we used to say, at the speed of the internet, at the speed of the wire. Very much so now, it's at the speed of AI. If the attackers are using it, which we know they are, then how are the defenders going to use it and harness it? And how do you bake it in so it's not something different? It's not an afterthought. It's like you never say, I'm going to go for a car ride and buckle my seatbelt and make sure the airbags are on. Right? We don't think about that anymore. You get in the car, you buckle in, your airbags are on by default. Your safety systems are all on by default as you move down that highway. And AI allows Black Cloak, artificial intelligence allows Black Cloak and our members to be able to do more, to be able to go further, and definitely be able to go faster.
Right. And I think that something that you mentioned was both sides of the fence are using these technologies, right? And it's trying to educate, and I'm calling it like a trifecta here, the organization that's using it, the customer that you're relating to, and then understand what the threat actor is doing, gives you that full holistic view, because then you know how they're using and what you need to remediate. And then having that customer online with that, I think, is a very important, because they have to buy in that, hold on, really, I'm going to get this deep fake? Is that really really they're going to get that profile?
Yeah.
I'm not really too concerned. Like, and I've heard that from executives, like, yeah, they wouldn't come after me. I'm nobody. But then having that trifecta of showing them the attacks and how they're being used, I think gets them to buy in a little bit more, to say, okay, I get it.
100% agree. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the massive advances that have been made on the artificial intelligence side, literally over the past two plus years, it's just night and day. We're not talking about being able to write a college paper or an essay better or create a PowerPoint. Great. We're talking about being able to literally use it as a vehicle by which you can more rapidly attack a company, its people, do OSINT, get that information out there, and collect it in a way, in a form or fashion that is actually actionable. Mm-hmm. And that is the scary thing, is that it's not just the collection of it. Great, you have 200 pages worth of documentation, a dossier on these 10 executives. Well, now what? And what can you automate from there immediately because of the data that you have and because of artificial intelligence? And that's where the so what, who cares happens. How do you go ahead and use that? Actually use it, right? If you're an attacker, and similarly, how do you use it if you're a defender?
Right. And I think that's a key area. And I'm seeing this more and more as more organizations on the cybersecurity side are incorporating AI. It's how they start to utilize it and then use it to be able to educate their customers on the benefits and features. Because I think there's right now, and I don't know if you're seeing this, there's a little kind of caution, like, hey, I don't know if I want to use AI. If you're using it, can we do it without? And I don't know if you're seeing that right now.
I think they've seen some interesting turning points. Really, RSA's conference this year. Last year was a little bit of a hesitation, trepidation. What are you feeding it? Make sure you're paying for all models and stuff like that. And then, what type, you don't want it to reuse the data. I think all companies basically said, ooh, wait, we can't retrain on these people's data if they're going to continue to use it, or if we want them to buy more, et cetera. And I think what you've really seen this year is how am I using this? Not the board edict of thou shalt must use AI, but how are you using it either to go faster? How are you using it to create differentiated products or services? How are you using it to get a competitive advantage? And so it's not a yes to all of those all the time. You should just be discussing it and talking about it and having that communication always.
For sure. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, I know we're coming up on 10 minutes. Any closing thoughts, takeaways?
I mean, look, I think digital executive protection it's in its prime. This has turned into really a must-have for companies, must-have for the CISO, for the CSO. And when you think about digital executive protection, when you think about things in this area, you have to find solutions that are going to be full category, right? Unified platform, full category, covering everything from identity theft and privacy and cybersecurity, physical security, hardening, social media, travel advice, all of these different things wrapped in together so that you can get ahead of the threats that we've seen, right? This is not a risk analysis on when is it likely to happen, right? This has already been happening, got worse with, unfortunately, once again, the tragic murder of United Healthcare CEO, with the Park Avenue shooting in New York, with the additional shootings in Minnesota of congresspersons, with the additional violence directed towards political figures on all sides of the aisle and spectrums, right? Individuals that are high profile, that are high value targets are being targeted, and their family members being targeted too. And so it's really a perfect time to say, how do I think about my program and your program? Blacklow can help. There's a digital executive protection framework that we don't do every single thing in it. That's the cool thing. It's got 14 key tenets in it. We don't do every single one. I'll give you an example. Physical security. We don't do physical security protection, but you, Mr. or Miss CISO or CSO, you need to be thinking about that as part of digital executive protection. But making sure you can benchmark yourself according to the standard that is out there and figure out, where does your program rate? What are you missing? What things do you need to communicate? Brand monitoring nothing that Black Cloak does, usually owned by legal and marketing,
Mhm.
but that might be something that you throw over the fence and say, hey, chief marketing officer, general counsel, what are you guys doing on this? We think that there's something there. So continue the education, continue to get awareness of this area. Go ahead and start benchmarking your team, your platform, your programs that you have. Figure out where you want to go. Figure out what framework you want to use so that you can get ahead of this and put in place reasonable digital executive protection standards for your executives and their family members and those key persons that are out there. But go ahead and do some more research on this, grab some more information on it, make some informed choices, because this is moved into a must-have item. The risks are too high. The boards are demanding it. The C-suite is demanding it, and it's really arrived. The home is the new battleground.
Right, for sure. Now, having executives that watch this and might not be working directly with you, what would be two or three things that you would say I'd want you to look at right now after this, stream, podcast, whatever you guys are listening to? What would you say, Chris? I'd like you to look at these three things right now just to see what your maturity is in these areas.
Look, I think one of the biggest things is going to be the status of your personal accounts.
Mhm.
Whatever that might be, Gmail, LinkedIn. You can pick a Gmail, a LinkedIn, financial account, a healthcare account. Are those hardened? Is the email address that controls them have multi-factor? Do those accounts have multi-factor? Is it non-SMS based multi-factor? Is there anybody in your email account right now doing email forwarding that set up rules that's logged in from another country? With Black Cloak, you would know, but this is one of the things that you can say, hey, these are the high profile personal accounts I have. How am I thinking about this area? Second, I think executives are global in nature, global in scope. And so really, do I have the right OSINT? Do I have the right information? Do I have the right travel advisory? Do I have the right threat intelligence here in terms of my digital breadcrumbs mixed with the physical security realities and delivered to me for travel protection, for advanced travel protection? And it's not just for me when I'm traveling for the company. When my family and I are going on vacation, do we have the same thing? And that's where the lines get blurred because, right, the company is not necessarily in that business. So that'd be a second thing that you think about. What are you doing? What do you have in place there? The third is really going to be the privacy exposure. What is out there? What do the digital breadcrumbs show in terms of data brokers? Not talking about the $9.99 data broker types of things, but what is out there? Google search suppression. How often are you up there? Where's your information? What does that footprint look like? What do those digital breadcrumbs look like? What does that look like? And where's that information coming from? In many cases, it's actually leaking directly from your cell phone, your tablet, your computer, from different things you or family members have done. And so that privacy exposure is massively key. And it gets even more advanced from there. The tail number for your aircraft, your yacht, the different residences you have, where the kids are, the social media, but all the rest of this is that privacy attack surface that you got to really, really shrink down,
Wow. So email, you look at email security, which is I totally get. And with all the accounts too, like I would say, to add on what Chris says, like go through all your profiled accounts, from bank accounts to social media to shopping accounts. What do you shop online? Because we've heard about, and I'm sure you have, where the Apple accounts, Amazon accounts, Netflix, all those start to get compromised, and they potentially get in there and get your credit card number and things along that line. Like,
yeah, cyber criminals love Amazon accounts because if you don't have dual factor, most people respond with I don't care how much toilet paper people know I bought.
Right.
But it's different. The Amazon account allows you to get access into your Alexa and all the different voice recordings. So if you're asking for, hey, how's the weather going to be next week in Barbados? Well, the executive's going to Barbados. It has the book buying in terms of what books you're buying, has your movie watching and that of your kids and all the rest, all tied in together in one juicy spot. Mm-hmm. It also gives you a footprint of what may or might be in the house because of all the connected devices. Yep. It even can get you into other different systems. Amazon's expanded out into the home router as well as into cameras and all the rest. So there's a really, really big attack surface on some of these accounts that people don't think about, right? They don't think about as often. And of course, the password for your Amazon account is going to be the same password for your email, the same password you used in other places. Yep, you maybe did a cap letter, added in a exclamation point. But I mean, really, honestly, not going to go ahead and dissuade a nation state from trying those simple variations.
Well, and the one thing that I mean, and this is a reminder for people with the AI chat, GBT or whatever, you can punch in that in and say, give me 50 different variations of what's common. And sadly, you can say, I have a profile of this individual that likes golf. His
Mhm.
dog's name is Pluto. His boat's name's this, whatever. Here's
Sure.
the first password. Show me variations of this, knowing this information, and it'll give you something close. Oh, and my anniversary date's this. My kid's birthday, the kid's birthday is that. It'll start coming up with variations that they'll have that intelligence because, as you know, brute forcing, they'll go through
Yeah.
different variations. But now they've narrowed it down to here's 10 passwords that they potentially will use
Yeah.
because of that. And we know that people do use that because it's most what they know the most.
Yep.
Anniversary dates, birth dates, kids' dates, special dates on their, and you can now glean that from the internet.
So we see that. So we see that all the time. We actually had one executive who had a password. The first password was Top Gun.
Right.
The second password was Goose.
Right.
Guess what their third password was?
Maverick.
It was Maverick, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and this is one of those things where now what you're doing is was a Rob Reiner film, I forget, but it's like you load in the entire, right, because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, you can load in the entire subtitles, everything for the whole movie. But you load in Top Gun, you load in the new Top Gun movie, you load in every movie that Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise were in the 80s and 90s. You load them all in together and you try to see, and you use that as your dictionary attack basis. And guess what?
Yeah.
You're more likely than not going to pop the other password to their other email account or their bank account or whatever. These are things that have always been fun for attackers to do. Have always been part of the attacker lexicon. But once again, with artificial intelligence, it just has become nonsensical, absolutely nonsensical, super easy to do. They're not wasting time on it. And we're human nature. It's human nature. So they're able to be successful.
Oh, 100%. Now, thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to put on the screen here, guys, for you guys want. Chris is his LinkedIn account. So take a screenshot, reach out to Chris. I mean, he's, as you can tell, wealth of information, of knowledge, especially on the executive side of what you need to do to be able to protect yourself. And something I would recommend any executive at least sit down with Chris and kind of go through, hey, this is what I have. This is where I am right now. What do I need to do? Is it something I need to work with you? I think, through this conversation, you kind of see any executive in this industry right now, any vertical at least needs to have this conversation because it's so rampant now with the attacks that are happening, and it's only getting worse just because it's becoming easier with AI, with deep fakes, with recording information. It's now becoming a lot more easier now to go after a broad spectrum executives, and then, like you said, narrow it down to a specific niche of retail, finance, law firms, whatever that may be. Then they can focus on either or. So I think our technology and cybersecurity, how it's evolving, is making it a lot more easier for threat actors to start doing their work.
I agree. Start somewhere is the main, right? Digital executive protection is here. Start somewhere. Grab more information at blackcloak.io. Grab more information from our LinkedIn. Talk to our folks. Brandon, it's great chatting with you.
It was great chatting. Now, guys, if you want to see it, Black Cloak, www.blackcloak.io, as Chris was mentioning. Again, it's one of those things that, like I said, I highly recommend people go through their due diligence. Even having the conversation is essential at this point in time. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So everyone, I mean, what you see right now when it comes to cybersecurity, when it comes to just the different things that are out there right now, it's so key and so important right now to do your due diligence, to really go through that footprint, like what Chris talked about, that a whole conversation. I'd recommend watching it over and over again, almost making a checklist. Like, okay, he talked about this, he talked about this concern, he talked about this industry. Okay, do I fit in one of those? Am I one of those people that maybe I need to start having this conversation? Maybe I need to start looking at my attack vector, my influence, my kids, my family member. Even we didn't really talk about extended family, friends, family. Like, I know for myself, there's people that have reached out to me from middle school, junior school. And you always ask, like, hold on, what is this conversation? I haven't talked to this person in 20, 30 years. Why is all of a sudden that popping up? And something Chris, I'm sure, will talk with his customers. Is it a valid conversation in that individual, or is someone now made that profile and now is trying to attack you because they know you'll have that conversation with that individual? And again, all the spectrum of that. I mean, there's so much to think about when it comes to cybersecurity and being able to protect yourself. And that's why I think it's so important in this day and age, really to have that conversation with an expert like Chris and make sure that you and your family are protected, because the worst case scenario is you have an incident and you go, I wish I would have. I wish I would have reached out. I wish I would have done that, because then it wouldn't have been that situation. It wouldn't have been that, because I knew better. I heard about it. I listened to Chris and Brandon on May 12th, and now it's May 20th. And I knew I should have called them on Friday. I knew I did, but I didn't, because it's not that important. And then you have an incident. And then you're going, I wish I would have done that earlier, because they got into somewhere that they talked about, they covered on that stream where I knew I should have protected that. So don't forget, software is hackable. Being connected is vulnerable. I'll see you next Daily Cyber.